When hope is gone, undo this lock and send me forth on a moonlit walk. Release restraint level 0. Hey kids, wanna see a dead body?
Hi guys, this is the Void of the Ravenclaw. Welcome back to another fanfiction story. If you like this type of content, smash the like button and subscribe for future updates that I do post on my community tab frequently. Now, let's continue where we last left off with our story with Abomination and the villain killer Deku striking each other at the same time, making devastating shockwaves that destroyed everything nearby. Once their fists collided with each other, they began to rapid punch each other. Every fist that connected between the two of them, you could hear loud bang noises like a bomb is going off as they continued their devastating battle. They both hit each other once again in the chest as they both skid backwards from the force of their strikes. I was wrong in my estimate of your danger level. You are already too dangerous to be left alive. You don't know the half of it. Abomination. You might have superior strength compared to mine, and judging from our clash, you're still holding back good portion of your strength, and I'm not innocent on that either. Let's kick this up a notch, shall we? This is the type of battle I've been craving. Deku shot out rapid shots of his data beams out of the palm of his hand directly towards Abomination. These data beams flew so fast that Abomination barely noticed the beams of energy. When he finally realized what was going on, it was already too late, as rapid shots as the beams of energy begins to hit all over Abomination. Each time a beam hit Abomination, smoke was created from the burning flesh. Each shot of his data beams shot out is increasing in power, and by doing that, increasing the speed as well, as the beams was flying towards its target. Deku discontinued his assault to gauge the damage he just caused. When the smoke finally cleared, you could see a heavily damaged Abomination as his skin is burnt and charred in many places. Deku narrowed his eyes, seeing his opponent's body slowly recovering. I see. I wasn't proficient enough. Fascinating. I wonder how much pressure his healing factor can take. Let's find out. Abomination did hear or overhear his conversation with himself as he narrowed his eyes and proceeded with caution. A villain killer Deku is still a unknown factor. He knows for certain he has a variation of powers that he hasn't demonstrated just yet. Abomination's no brute. He has a brain. And he concluded during this battle, the brat is still holding back. Abomination can even tell he's holding back his punches as well. Abomination was not expecting red and green chains burst out of the ground of the street and wrapping around his arms and legs, constricting him to that very spot as he tried to yank his arm free, only to fail at every attempt as the chain tightened its grip upon Abomination. Abomination was starting to feel weak, like something was zapping his powers. Some sort of red and green electricity began shocking Abomination, he was kneeling before now he finally got up to his feet while being shocked. The chains tightened so much that it's keeping Abomination from falling onto his knees once again. What the hell is this? Release me. Oh, you bastard. You honestly think I would just release you just because you wanted to be released? Sorry to burst your bubble, Abomination, but that's not happening. After all, I can't have you moving around too much. You know, I've been fighting a lot of you people with some sort of regeneration power, so I'm a bit curious. Now I wonder how much damage your body can take before it overtaxes your regeneration factor of yours. Let's start small, shall we? Deku pointed his index finger at Abomination, at his right knee, as a beam of energy shot out. The beam actually went through his leg, as blood began to splatter, as Abomination regeneration kicks in, healing the wound as it slowly closes up. Without even saying a single word, Deku shot out rapid beams of energy out of his fingertips at different limbs of Abominations, as Abomination screams out in pain. Deku changed his tactics, engulfing his fists in green and red energy, as you could see the sparks of electricity emanate from his fists that are glowing green and red, as he begins to strike Abomination repeatedly with his fist, making fist impacts upon Abomination's skin. That's how much strength he's using, and that's not even including the coded data energy over his fists to add extra damage. An Abomination can't move. The longer the chains are wrapped around him, the more he gets drained of his power. The chains drain any foreign energy, converted the energy they absorb and produce electricity, alongside reinforcing the chains itself to prevent the victim from getting released or breaking out. The electricity is to prevent anyone from resisting. Preventing anyone from breaking free. Abomination might have gamma energy, or gamma. Still a form of energy that can't be siphoned. Deku could tell that Abomination has an insane amount of gamma radiation in him. He knows eventually his chains will break. They might be hard to deal with, but they're not unbreakable. You simply only have to produce more power than the chains can siphon all at once. And Abomination did that Abomination did that exact thing. Abomination strengthened. Abomination clenched his fist and increased the output of gamma radiation that's in his body. In result, the chains begin to crack, then shatter, freeing Abomination as he immediately swung his fist at Deku's face, only hitting air. But Abomination was expecting that, so he made a solid left hook right into Deku's stomach. Deku was taken off guard when he dodged the first initial attack, only to get hit in the stomach with a vicious right hook. Deku coughed up spit and was sent skidding backwards. Unfortunately, he wasn't given enough time to implement any counterattack or any countermeasures as Abomination appeared right in front of him and began to land rapid strikes across Deku's face and body. Abomination and his attacks. Read that wrong. Abomination ended his attack with a thunderclap as he slammed both of his hands together, making a shockwave as Deku was sent flying backwards into several buildings. As you can see, Deku indented into a wall of concrete as he proceeded to cough up a little blood from his mouth. Then he proceeded to unlodge himself from the cement as he got up to his feet. Note to self, avoid whatever that was. My body actually took damage. Deku heard a loud crack noise coming from his right as he had to hop backwards to dodge a charging Abomination as he skid to a stop, then immediately charge once again. Deku ducked under a huge fist, then went into a spin kick, immediately afterwards hitting Abomination in the chest as he was sent flying outside of the building that they're currently in. Deku opened up a digital rift as he stepped through it, as the same type of rift appeared right behind the flying Abomination. Deku appeared out of the digital rift and grabbed Abomination by the back of his head and slam him around. Well, basically slam his face into the ground, making a small crater. Deku extended his hand backwards using every ounce of strength he can muster by using 100% of his physical strength and slam his fist at the back of Abomination's head, making that small crater into a large crater as a couple buildings was obliterated from the force that he created. Deku looked up to see the damage. Deku looked around to see the damage. Once he examined, his opponent is no longer conscious, not seeing a single person in the area, so he proceeded to charge up a humongous beam of energy and pointed it at the unconscious Abomination. It's like he's used his 100% of his strength. He's using his data beam at full power, ready to finish off his opponent permanently. Game over. I win. Time to die, Abomination. As he let go of the energy out of the palm of his hand, but before the energy could hit its target, Abomination opened his eyes as he instinctively, using it, how am I phrase this right? Pure instinct, he rolled out of the way to the side, as the beam would have killed him if the beam made a direct hit. While on his back, he kicked Deku away from him to get some distance. Deku, in mid-flight, went into a backflip and landed on both of his feet, staring cautiously at Abomination as he watched his opponent finally get to his feet. You're a lot more harder to kill than I thought you would be. But there's only one way this is going to end. Me, victorious, and you in a body bag. Pretty confident thinking you could actually kill me. I have battled the strongest people on this planet. The Avengers, Hulk on several occasions. I have even fought Thor, the Thunder God. You honestly think you could take me out? I'll give you credit where credit is due. You're strong, but you're nowhere near my level, or the Incredible Hulk's level. You're just out of your league. In simple terms, we're not in the same weight class. With nothing else to say, Abomination charged forward. During his charge, he had to halt, as had to halt his attack, as the scenery begins to shift and morph. As the buildings begin to shrink, disappear, as new ones are brought up that just appear green, as he found himself on a roof of a virtual building. Abomination moved his head around to all sides as his eyes widen, seeing he's been transported to some sort of virtual city. What the hell? Welcome, Abomination, to Overlord. Gotta admit, I did not see myself using this for a singular opponent. But you forced my hand. You're in my world now, bitch. Deku flickered, then reappeared right in front of Abomination and slammed a powerful right hook that sent Abomination shooting off like a rocket into several of the virtual buildings in Overlord. And the fact that he's in Overlord, he has access to his full power and abilities. While Overlord is active, he's always been more powerful compared to him being outside of Overlord. In the real world, his powers are always lessened to a degree, and majority of his abilities are locked. He can't have access to while Overlord is not active. That's why he normally doesn't overuse this ability by activating Overlord. It's not really sporting if he basically can murder anyone that got caught in Overlord, but even that will be a hard task fighting Abomination. Unlike Quarks, he can't negate mutant abilities in Overlord like he can do with Quarks while Overlord is active. Deku flickered once again, then reappeared right in front of Abomination, who was still flying through the sky, and proceeded to kick Abomination in the stomach, increasing his speed. Deku flickered once again, then appeared some distance away as an incoming Abomination come flying towards Deku. Deku jump up at the incoming Abomination and proceed to jump over Abomination, then spinning upside down above Abomination, then proceed to kick Abomination in the back of the head, slamming him into the ground. As you can see, digital circuits appear on the ground when he made contact. Eventually, the ground returned back to his original color of black and green, mixture of red, in the floor design in Overlord. Deku hovered down to the ground. Once his foot made contact with the ground itself was cut up all around him into perfectly cubes. With one wave of hands, the block cubes objects shoot off, hitting Abomination like a rocket as he was bombarded by medium-sized cubes. The cubes fly back into place like the ground wasn't even cut up in the beginning. Like the ground wasn't even cut up. As the ground reverted back to normal, as Deku walked towards Abomination and shot out a huge beam of energy at Abomination, forcing him to slide backwards from the pressure of the energy blast. Deku did not give Abomination any time to breathe, and rushed with insane speed and kicked Abomination in the stomach. Abomination pushed past the pain and slammed his fist into Deku's face as he was sent sliding backwards. Once Deku stopped moving, he charged forward and ducked under a large fist and knee Abomination in the side of the ribs. Then Deku followed up with his initial attack with a powerful right hook across Abomination's face, then proceeded to use his left hand to grab Abomination by the face as he grabbed Abomination by the face and bolted forward and slamming the back of his skull into several virtual buildings as he's running through the buildings after buildings as he tossed Abomination in a completely different direction, flying through more buildings like a rocket until he skid across the ground to a stop. Abomination managed to get his bearings straight while he was being pushed into buildings after buildings. He wasn't just sitting there allowing Deku to do that. He did try to swing at Deku, but Deku simply dodged his head to the side, dodging before he threw Abomination to the side. His pure anger in his eyes, he rushed forward blindly, forcing Deku to turn a good portion of his body into pure data as Abomination's fist passed harmlessly through Deku. Deku jumped up and did a spin kick across Abomination's face as Deku jumped backwards and skid backwards. So did Abomination, without even breaking eye contact with each other. Deku wiped the blood from his mouth with the side of his arm. Deku created a data energy bolt in the air all around him, as all of the energy bolts of green and red energy all pointed at Abomination as they flew towards their target. Abomination managed to dodge a few of them, but unfortunately, they just followed him, eventually hitting him. In turn, the rest of the energy bolts managed to hit Abomination as well. As you can see, flashes of green and red go off after each attack landed on his opponent. Now his data bolts are only accessible only in Overlord. It's an energy type of attack that's a lot more condensed and more powerful than his normal data beams that he shoots out of the palm of his hands. While being bombarded by energy attacks, Abomination watched all the damage that he managed to inflict on Deku revert back where he's completely fine, like he wasn't even damaged to begin with. As Abomination was crossing his arms in an X, tried to block and from the incoming energy attacks that was flying towards him. Abomination unleashed a thunderclap. When he clapped both his hands together, knocking back all of the data energy bolts back at Deku. Deku was far enough that the thunderclap had no effect on him, besides the wind blowing towards him, blowing his hair around from the wind. As several of the energy bolts fly past Deku, hitting the buildings behind him. As there's a large flash of green as an explosion went off from the data bolt exploding. Deku can see Abomination bleeding all over his body. He's been heavily damaged by his last attack. Deku immediately capitalized on his damaged opponent. He doesn't know how long until his healing factor kicks in, but he's not going to he's not going to wait to find out, as he immediately went into attack once again by throwing punches and kicks at his injured opponent. Dozens of data chains pop out of the ground and wrap around Abomination's arms, legs, and neck. Deku slammed his fist into Abomination's stomach, forcing him down on one knee, as Deku grabbed Abomination with both of his hands around his head as he began to squeeze. Abomination did not stay idle. He used what strength he can muster, tried to swing his arm, only to get headbutted repeatedly, as his hand fell limp, as the chains began to drain more of his energy by every second. It was just too much. Once Deku saw Abomination no longer resisting, he crushed his head as blood, brain, matter spray all over Deku's face as Overlord deactivated itself. As the surroundings revert back to normal, Deku immediately left the area by travel by rooftop. He wanted to see how All Might was holding up. When he eventually found him, he sees him leaning against the wall, panting as you can see a unconscious Muscular off to the side, giving his report to the local police officers. So Deku turned around and left the area to continue his hunt to kill some more villains. And he did just that, as he's been all over the city, killing villains one after another. Not deluded enough to think that his actions hasn't been noticed by villains and the heroes. He doesn't care. He's having too much fun. And there is a reason for his madness, why he's targeting so many villains all at once. After finishing off the last couple of low-tier villains, a red singular feather dug right into the ground, right in front of Deku. Deku looked around to see two heroes. He sees a familiar bunny and Hawks, who is currently hovering in the air, hovering down until he started to hover down to the ground as his feet touched the ground. Deku had to dodge a incoming scarf from a very iconic hero, Eraserhead himself. Before Deku could even counterattack, a whip wrapped around Deku's right wrist. As pro hero Midnight stepped out of the shadows, revealing herself. You have been a very bad boy. You need to be punished. Deku looked around, seeing not just one pro hero that's coming after him, but 4 pro heroes that was sent out to stop him. Eraserhead, Mirko, Midnight, and Hawks. All high-ranking heroes are standing in his way. Deku's wrist. Deku turned his wrist to peer data as the whip passed harmlessly through his right wrist as the villain killer returned his arm back to normal. Is one complete? I'm in place. Do it now. As he says that through his communicator, as the city power was shut off, as a blackout transpired, preventing Deku from escaping through the power grid. Deku looked around, only seeing the hospital still has power in the distance, but beyond that, the city is in a complete lockdown. Clever, very clever. Not only did you come in superior numbers, but you cut off my escape. Well played. It doesn't look good for me, that's for sure. I've already had a long night. I've been quite busy, if you haven't noticed. But I'm a bit exhausted. So, you win. I surrender. All of the heroes had to take a double take. What they just heard. But I didn't stutter. I'm not in the business of killing heroes. And you know, villain killer and all. I kill villains, not heroes. And I'm already exhausted from the fights I've had prior. So, take me in. I'm all yours. He extended both of his hands outwards, ready for to be handcuffed, with a smirk on his face. Mirko was highly disappointed. She wanted some action tonight, and you could tell from her facial expressions, she's not one bit pleased. Mirko walked over to the villain killer and grabbed hold of his wrist and put a handcuffs over his and placed the handcuffs over his wrist. Very roughly, but look disappointed. Don't worry. We will play sooner or later, my little white rabbit. Deku clearly was not bothered by being captured by the heroes, and all the heroes are put on edge how nonchalant he's about this, and the fact that he has a smirk that hasn't left his face. But regardless, they transport him to the nearest police station, then put him in one of the cells to hold him until they can transport him to Tartarus. He's far too dangerous to put in a normal prison. Hindsight, put him in Tartarus, a maximum security prison filled with villains. Probably not the best idea they had, but they don't really have a whole lot of options. While they were transporting him to the police station, Deku had a smirk on his face the entire time. As a whole platoon of officers met the heroes halfway and put the villain killer in the back of a squad car and drove off to the police station. Once they arrive, they guide the villain killer to a isolated cell that's shielded off by all electronics. This specific cell is used to hold electric-based quirks. Deku saw the smug look on all of the officers' faces when they walked past his cell. Enjoy your fleeting victory. It won't last. You won't feel the same when I finally act. The fools don't even realize I wanted to get arrested. They're only helping me kill villains by sending me to a maximum security prison filled with villains. Those stupid fools. The news spread like crazy that the villain killer was captured by a combination effort by several high pro ranking heroes. 3 weeks later, he is in a transport on his way to Tartarus, the high secured prison that's on an island, not too far away from the mainland, only way into Tartarus is crossing the large bridge connecting the mainland to the island. Deku wasn't the only prisoner on the bus, as there are several villains giving Deku nasty looks. As they're fully aware Deku is the villain killer, Deku simply gave them a smirk. All the prisoners on the bus were wearing cork suppressor collars. Deku suppressor is made for mutants, but unknown to the poor fools, the collar has no effect on him, nor will a cork suppressor collar. He's not your average mutant or just a random person with a quirk. The two super genes were fused together, making something completely new. Of course, the latest model of the power suppressors have no effect on the villain killer. He's simply acting like he's powerless, but in all truth, he has access to all of his abilities that aren't locked away while Overlord is not inactive. When Overlord is not active, they passed through several security checkpoints. Deku paid close attention to all the security measures that might come in handy when he makes his grand escape, when he kills every single villain in this prison. But for now, he'll lay low and play the model prisoner until the tension boils over to the boiling point. All he has to do is wait. Eventually, the other prisoners will act, most likely in the form of them trying to kill him. But he'll deal with that when the time comes. Once he was fully processed, the moment he walked into one of the prison wings, he was noticed. All the prisoners begin to yell bodily harm or just death threats. Deku simply just gave him a smirk and a bow, and that proceeded to make them even more angrier, further giving them more rage, as the villain killer is simply mocking them. As Deku approached his cell, finally, "Good sir, I hope my lovely cell has a window seat. I do enjoy watching the birds fly around in the morning. It's a hobby of mine." "Shut up, prisoner 44999. Get your ass in the cell." As he pushed Deku into the cell. As they lock up the cell itself, it is a clear white cell with no access to any electronics. There's only a bed, and there's a door to the right inside the cell that leads to the bathroom, where there's a toilet and a shower. All the cell walls are all see-through. Outside of the bathroom's not transparent, the walls. It's solid, but the rest is all see-through. Some sort of thick glass that's specifically made to contain electric-based quirks. They'll have a specific cell designed to contain the villain killer. They don't even know what his ability is. It's too various to even pin down. Deku could easily shatter the glass room he's in, using his physical strength, but he's not going to do that for right now. He'll play along to see how this plays out. He'll play ball like he originally planned, and sit there and wait. He gets his he gets 3 meals a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Only time he's let out of his cell is during his yard time. Beyond that, he's in his cell 24/7. Because he's a high-profile prisoner, they keep him they keep him away from the normal. Well, they keep him separated from the rest of the population of Tartarus. Considering his reputation, many would like to kill him. A month has gone by until prison guards took him to his normal hour of his yard time as they took him out of his cell. Whoa, sorry, I jumped ahead. A month has passed, but until a prisoner guard took him out of his cell to take him to see his visitor that just came today, Decky was intrigued by the fact that someone actually came to visit him, considering he doesn't know anyone and he has no friends. When Ducky got into the room, he saw the number one hero behind the glass as he picked up the phone and placed it against his ear, as All Might did the same. I never thought I would get a visitor, specifically you, the number one hero, All Might himself. I only came here to get some answers. You seem to know quite a bit about this league. I want to know everything you know. And if you give me any vital information, I could arrange for you to have a more comfortable jail cell. I have in mind it has more tighter security than Tartarus, but you won't have other inmates trying to kill you. Why would I do that? Exactly where I want to be. You are correct, the League of Villains are a threat that needs to be dealt with. We both can agree upon that. So I'll tell you a little secret. Your old nemesis is not so dead as you think. All Might's eyes widen from that single reference to All for One. That's impossible. I killed him myself. There's no way he could have survived. You poor naive fool. You did not kill All for One. You injured him severely, but not killed. He is behind this whole League of Villains. I might not know what their specific numbers are, or their plans, but their little USJ attempt is only the beginning. I have no doubt they will act once again, sooner or later. They'll target the kids once again. That's a guarantee. The ones with a hand seems to be dead set on killing them. You know all this. I'm a villain. I am the villain killer. And I have experienced it before. As the guard came into the room, as he announced the time is up, as his time expired for his little visit. Wait. Train your successor well. Midoriya will be up against terrible odds. You know? How? How the hell do you know this? In another life, I used to be a member of the League of Villains. Good luck, All Might. The brat is going to need your guidance. Need a firm guide. At his current level, the League of Villains will eradicate him. Goodbye, number one hero. I have no doubt we'll meet again in the near future, as Decky just laughed as the prison guard dragged him out of his cell. A few days has passed. A few days has gone by. His time in Tartarus was uneventful until his yard time. He noticed all of the prison guards turned their back at him and walked back into the prison. On the other side of the yard, Deku could see several prisoners or other inmates come walking out, clearly not here to just say hello. Somehow they got their hands on some metal bats. Well, aluminum bats. Some have aluminum, some have wooden bats. It varies from inmate to inmate. Gotta love setups. Someone clearly doesn't like me, and I highly doubt these morons could arrange something like this. It must be one of the prison guards. Or even the warden himself. Recognize a few of you. It's been a while. Well, boys, what are you waiting for? Let's get this party started. The inmates begin to surround Deku on all sides, wielding aluminum bats and wooden bats, like I said. Deku ducked under the first two bat swings, forcing the two inmates attacking each other by slamming their bats in their faces. They clearly have broke their nose, but still conscious. You fully understand that these weapons, like these metal bats, don't work on him. Not even gunshots will pierce his skin, but that doesn't mean he wants to get hit on purpose. He just doesn't like the idea of being hit by a bat. Not saying it could damage him. He doesn't. The fact that being hit by a bat, it's just out of principle. An inmate came from behind, as another one tried to flank him. Deku began to dodge the wild bat swings. They swung a right with a... One swung from the right with a metal bat. Deku simply caught the bat and yanked the bat out of the inmate's hands as he proceeds to crush the bat into a round ball, then throw it at the front inmate. As the moment the small aluminum ball hit the guy, he went sent flying backwards. The moment the aluminum ball hit the man in the head, he flew directly backwards into the wall, other side of the yard. When he did that, the rest of the inmates began to attack, as one of the wooden bats shattered when it made contact with Deku's arm. Deku disarmed the other inmate by crushing the aluminum bat into a round ball as he dropped them to the ground, as the inmates that was tossed into the wall finally recovered and joined the rest of his posse surrounding Deku. I have an odd question. By any happenstance, would you all be villains? Of course we are. Only villains are in Tartarus. Outside of you, villain killer, we're gonna make you pay. You killed many of our comrades. You're not gonna leave this prison alive. Perfect. As Deku formed a very disturbing smile, as all the inmates could feel a uncomfortable feeling, as they could feel chills in their spine, as they, by pure instinct, started to backstep from the villain killer. But Deku didn't give him the chance. Well, Deku didn't give the inmates the chance. As he took the chance to run, or before they could take the chance to run, Deku attacked the first one by grabbing the man by the face and slamming him into the ground. He lifted him up by the face once again and used his opposite hand to snap his neck as he tossed the inmate across to the side, hitting the wall beside him. Who's next? Deku shoved his fist into another inmate, ripping right through his chest by ripping out his heart. As the two remaining inmates begin to back off. By this time, some guards did notice what was going on. They didn't know who set this up, but they immediately sounded alarms as they had all the inmates on the yard lay on the ground with their hands behind their back. Those specific guards that know the villain killer, well, the Pacific prison guard that does talk to the villain killer often, noticed he was in the yard killing other inmates. And the fact that there was a villain in the yard at the same time was the villain killer was very suspicious. It has been perfectly made clear no other inmates should be allowed during the villain killer's yard time. It clearly was set up by one of the fellow guards, but he has no solid proof, so he's keeping his mouth shut for now. Decky was dragged off the floor onto his feet. He gave the two remaining alive villains a smirk, telling them that it's not over, not by a long shot. They're dead. They just don't know it yet. As he was led back to his cell, I want to know exactly what happened, Deku. Apparently, someone used the opportunity while I was in the yard to have someone kill me. I'm guessing one of your fellow prison guards doesn't take too kindly to me. Sort of figured this would happen eventually. You know I respect what you do. I wish some of the heroes would kill more of the villains, but with the current regulations, that's not possible. You know I'm gonna have to put you in. You know I'm gonna have to put you in the hold. It's protocol. Don't sweat it. Don't sweat it at all, man. They finally arrived at solitary confinement. As Deku stepped in, he gave no guard no trouble. As he waved the guard off, Deku sat down on the bed in solitary confinement. And connected both of his hands together as he rests his chin on top of his hands. As he begins to formulate several plans in his head. This is where we're going to stop it. Hope you guys have a good night and day. Enjoy my time zones. And I'll catch you in the next video.